Okay, so what I wanted to do is just show you how easy it is to use Fusion 360. And this is a CAD modeling software. It's also a parametric, which means it basically, there's no polygons in this when you're creating. You're creating through creating solids, not like something like Maya or 3ds Max, which creates in polygons. There's no polygons in this software. So in 3D Max and Maya, those types of polygonal modelers, when you're creating something, you're creating it, it's hollow. Okay, it's like skins. Okay. In Fusion, when you create something, it's a solid. So when we cut into it, it's just like a solid block of metal or something. Okay. So there's lots of ways to model inside of Fusion, and I was going to show you a quick way how to do some things that would help you. Now, one of the first things you want to do is be organized. So I have a new file here. So I'm going to want to come up here and I'm going to want to save the file and give it a name. Now, by default, it's saving on the cloud. So I've got a folder called Student Classwork. Okay. And this is, I'm going to base this off of Ivan's sketch. So I'm just going to call this Ivan MP3 Player. Okay, so it's saved and you'll see it up here. Now what we want to do is I've initially come in here and I've done some, here's Ivan's drawing, and I'm using PureRef, which is a software for gathering reference. So what's nice about it is it'll float over the top of your software. And so here's Ivan's sketch, nice sketch. And then I also went in and got some information on the USB port here, because we really don't know how big this sketch is, but what we do know is how big this USB port is. So that'll help us in creating everything to the right scale. You'll see here that this says that this is 12.4 millimeters wide. So that's what we'll do, is we'll bring it in here and then we'll calibrate this. So when we're building things, we're building it to the actual scale. Now we want to be organized here, so we want to be creating in layers. So there's two ways to do that. You can go right here and on the title right here and right click and go new component. A component is a layer. You can think of it as a layer, kind of like a layer in Photoshop, but it carries more things like sketches and our model and everything is inside of a layer. Now we want to do that because if we don't organize this, it can get out of hand really quick with our timeline down here at the bottom, and you'll see this as I go along. Also, that's this button right here, so I can click this and say, okay, let's create a new component, and I'm going to say, okay, we're going to call this, we'll say this is outside ring, so I'm just going to call this outside ring that we'll make on this layer. Now, I don't want to activate this. Okay, what this means is that when I make another layer, it's going to put it underneath that layer, make sub layers, and I don't want to do that. So I'm just turning off activate. So in other words, when I make this, it will be underneath this layer. This is like my master layer, and there'll be a layer underneath that. Okay, I click OK, and you'll see there it is. Now you'll see I have some little colors on mine. By default, Fusion doesn't have colors. There's a little gear down here in the bottom right hand corner. If you click on that, you can see component color swatch. If I turn that off, you'll see this is the default setting. There's no colors, and this is an advantage to have these color coordinated, and you'll see this here in a little bit. So I'm going to turn that back on, and then it just randomly gives it colors. Okay, so that's the outside ring. We'll say we'll make another one, which is the inside. Let's just call this base, which will be this base piece here. And then we can make one called controls. So we can put all these controls on that. And I think that's all we need, because we'll put the USB on the base, and then we'll have these pieces, then we'll have those pieces. And so that's about as organized as I need to be. Now, you need to do this up front because you can't do it afterwards. So in other words, as we make things, you can't move things around, or you can't move the timeline around. So you want to do this up front. Okay, so let's bring our sketch in. Okay. Pretty easy to bring the sketch in. You're going to go up here to this that says Insert, and it's called a canvas. That's what we're doing. Then I just have to go find it and have it right here. And then I have to tell it which way we want it to face. Okay, do we want it to be on the front? Do we want to draw it from the front, from the side? I want to draw it like it's laying down, so I'm going to draw from the ground. So I'm going to go here. Now Shift, center mouse button is what pans you around, and then this little gizmo is move, but this corner is scale, so I can scale this up. Now we're going to calibrate it here in a minute. I'm just getting it kind of big enough where I can kind of see it. Be sure you grab the corner, because if you grab this, that stretches it. Okay, we don't want to do that. Okay, so canvas, from your computer, pick it. We're going to go pick the ground plane and then just scale it up some so it's easy to see it. And just click OK. Go to the top view and I can see that. All right, I want to rotate that, so you'll see canvases right here. Okay, now I'm on the base layer, and you'll tell by this little black dot here. Okay, you'll see this layer, see how it doesn't have a black dot? That's now I'm on this layer. So I'm putting the canvas on the base layer, and you'll see there's some little icons down here. These icons are what I am doing. Okay, this is my timeline. Okay, I can open up Canvas right here. You'll see there it is, and I can tell that I want to edit it, and I'm going to rotate it. I want to rotate it up, and that's a 90 degrees. And if I grab this, this is moving it. Okay, and I'm going to move it so that it's pretty much centered. You could turn down your transparency some if you want to. There's the center of our world. And so it doesn't have to be perfect. That looks good. And now I'm going to do what's called calibrate it. Okay. So I'm going to go to here at calibrate. Now I know that this is 12.4 millimeters wide. So I'm just going to click here and I'm going to click there. And then it's going to tell me. So I want this to be 12.4. And then it will scale it to that. So now I can go back in if I want to do that again, just to check it, calibrate, and I go from here to there, and you'll see it's about 12.4. And I'm going to do that again. Okay. All right, so I probably want to, now that that's calibrated, I'm going to move it again. So I'm going to move it so that's, there's your center point right there, and it doesn't have to be perfect because the drawing's not perfect. And we click OK. All right, so now I know this is calibrated correctly. Now, if you go up here under Document Settings right up here, okay, here's your units. You can click on this and you can change your units to inches if you want to. Okay, I have a tendency to measure in inches, but to calibrate this, the measurement we brought in was in millimeters, and so I left it at the default in millimeters, which is fine. Okay, so this is a Boolean modeler. We Boolean in here. It's also a spline modeler. We create things from splines. So I'm going to initially create this from a spline. So I'll go up here, create. Now, when you're in a three-dimensional kind of view like this, this is my sketch. When I sketch this, I tell it what view, and I want to sketch on this view. And now it's ready for me to do two-dimensional drawings on this. So all of your tools are right in here, different drawing kinds of tools. Now a line is a straight line versus a spline, which is a curved line. So if you're wanting to make organic kind of curved things, you use a spline. But if we're just doing straight things, it's a line. Of course, then we have rectangles, circles, arcs, all different kinds of things. And like when you're creating a circle, you have different ways that you can create circles. You can create them from their center or make 2 points, lots of different ways. Now, I have tools up here, okay? For example, some things that I'm going to be doing today is creating some patterns, okay? So we're going to be doing that. We can actually put these tools, if you click right here, you can put these tools, I'm going to say pin to toolbar, and it'll pin them up here. Okay, so we can actually customize our menu. But for right now, I'm just going to go circle. Now, this puts constraints on things. So when I go to the center and I click, I'm making this circle, and it's constraining it to the center there. Okay, now it's snapping to the grid. I can turn that off if I want to. I can go right over here and turn off snap if I want to turn that off, which makes it a little bit easier to flow this. And we'll say, okay, maybe right there is our initial circle that we're doing in here. Okay, and so then I'm going to finish the sketch. Now, what I need to determine is what it is that I'm going to be creating first. So this is the basis of how you do things. It's pretty easy. Okay. And then if I want to make that three-dimensional, I just go press pull, and I can bring it up, and now it's a three-dimensional body. All right. That's kind of the basis of how we do things in here. Okay. So I'm just going to undo this and go back. All right, so I'm going to be making this outside ring first. That's what I'm going to be doing first. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, I think maybe I'll draw my drawings on the base and then make the models on these, maybe. No, we'll just go ahead and do this. So I'm going to go to outside ring, and I'm going to click. Notice down here that you have icons down here. This is my timeline. When I go here and I click this, you'll see I have nothing. That's because this is the active layer now. All right, so we're going to make this the outside ring. So we're going to go click here. We're going to create a circle. We're going to snap it to the center. That's the inside of the ring. Now, I have 2 ways I can do this next one. I can go here and make another one like so. That's one way to do it. Okay. And I can undo that, Control Z. Or I have an offset tool here. I can click this and then click this line, and then it lets me offset that to create the outside line. So there's several ways that things can be made. Okay, so there we go. All right, now I want to go ahead and draw in this USB connector in here. So I'm just going to draw that as a rectangle. I'm going to turn my snaps back on so it's easier for me to make it symmetrical. So that'll be to there. We're going to reset this anyway. So something like that. Now, that's not going to be the right measurement, so I'm going to fix that. I'm going to first do it by drawing a center line here. And then, okay, now once I have this line, I really don't need this line as to model with. I want it to be a construction line, so it's just like a line to measure from and such. So what you do is we go make this a construction line. Okay, so if you click it, go here, make that a construction line, it'll be a dotted line. So these are lines to model from. This is a line to measure from, is all I'm saying here. All right, so now what I want to do is calibrate this so that I know this distance here, because we know that it's 12.4 all the way across, so this would be 6.2 from here to there. So I can go here and click Sketch Dimension, and I pick this edge, and I pick that edge, and then pull up, and if I type in 6.2, then it will scale that. Okay, then I do the same thing again, repeat it, go here to there, and that one's 6.2. So now I know that is 12 across, okay, and that it's centered. Okay, so you'll see these little icons that pop up. These are all different kinds of icons. When you're drawing, you put constraints on it. This is a software for creating prototypes. So it's very accurate. It's not like Maya or Max, you know, those are not accurate. I mean, you can do measurements, but they're not very accurate. This is for creating very accurate models. So we have sketch dimensions. Now this puts constraints on it, which means that I can't change this now. I mean, I can by coming up here and changing it, but I can't just grab something and move it because it's constrained. All right, another thing I want to do here now is this. I want to be able to cut this right here so that it only has the arc from there to there. So I'm going to do that by drawing a line. I'm going to snap it to the center. And then I'm going to go out here and I'm trying to go right across that line. And I want to leave a little bit of gap in here. So maybe right about there would work good. Okay, and so that's 3 outside of there. So 3 outside of here. And then go back. And that'll get me, yeah, let's click OK. And I don't want those to, sorry, I was in construction, turn those off, not construction lines. Okay, there we go. All right, so this is where I can, you know, I'll be cutting this piece, so it'll only be arcing from there to there. Okay, and I want to do the same down here. So looks like he's got it drawn somewhere right about there. So there and back. Okay, now I don't really need these outside pieces here, so you can use this tool right here, which is trim, which is, by the way, the speed key is T for trim, and I can get rid of that line and get rid of these lines. I don't need those. I just needed this cut piece here. Okay, so let's go ahead and make this little arc here. And we'll put that on the base. So we have to create a new sketch. And here. And then we're going to create same thing as circle here. And let's turn off our snaps over here. And that's fine. And then we're going to create a line. And we'll say, I'll turn my snap back on now. Maybe right about here. And that'll be this piece there. So we can finish that. Now, to show you is that if I open this up now, you'll see that I have, and I'm going to open this one up here too. Okay, I'm going to turn that sketch off, which turns that one on. And then I turn this and turn that one on. Okay. All right, so I want to go back to modeling on this layer. And now we're going to turn this into dimensional objects. Okay, so I want to take this, and I'm going to do a press pull, and then I can just pull it up for whatever dimension. Now, since we don't know what the dimensions are on this, I'm just eyeballing it. I can always go back and change it later if I want to, but I'm going to say it looks like, I mean, he's got it pretty fat. Maybe something like that. Okay, now this, and of course I have all kinds of things I can do. You know, I can type in a specific millimeters. Matter of fact, let's just round this and let's just make it, and I can either type it in here or I can type it in here. Let's just make this 6. And then I can tell it to make a new body. Okay, your choices here are a new body, which makes it looks like a new model, or a new component, which makes it a new model and makes it on a new layer, but we want to put it on this layer, so we don't want to do that. And this is a Boolean modeler, so when I'm making things, I can tell them to join together, they can intersect or cut. Okay, and we'll show some of this later. But we're going to leave it on new body, okay, and I'm going to click OK, and so then you'll see I have a new body here. And it gives me two of these. Okay, now I can rename these. Okay, so we're going to say this is left outer edge. And I'm going to name this right outer edge. You should name things as you go along. Okay, we'll call this one our base sketch, because it can get pretty complicated, so you want to name things as you go along. All right, so for right now, I'm going to go ahead and turn my canvas off as I work on this. By the way, it's Shift, center mouse button to pan around. All of your viewport tools are down here at the bottom. Like I can turn on my grid on and off. I can turn my snap on and off. I'm going to turn my grid off right now. All right, so now this is really chunky and this is round. Now I could make this completely round, but I'm going to make it roundish with a flat top. But that's just up to me in the way that I want to do it. You know, everybody, you know, it's a prototype, so you're the designer, so you sketch it out and then you build it. So what I'm going to do is come in here and I'm going to grab this edge, and I'm holding down the control key to grab this edge, and then I'm going to right click and I'm going to say fillet. And then I'm going to click and drag this, and I can round that. And so I don't want it to be, I want it to have a little bit of a flat edge right in there. I don't want these on top of each other, so I want something like this. Now, this has given me complete tangency, but I can grab this and I can actually come in here and bloat this out, or, you know, I can change how it's flowing if I want to, but I'm going to leave it at a normal tangency. And there we go. So that's pretty easy. I mean, since we're not dealing with polygons, I don't have to worry about, you know, where am I putting polygons or whatever. This is a great quick modeling tool, and it's accurate, and things can be manufactured from here. Now, at any time, if I want to, I can go back and edit this at any time. You'll see there's a timeline down here. As a matter of fact, I can go back in the timeline, and they'll turn that off, and I go back into the timeline. Okay, so, and I'm going to go all the way forward. So I can come down here, and I can right click, and I can say, okay, let's edit this feature. Or I can actually pick it here and say, edit this feature, and then I can make it bigger or smaller. What I want to do, though, is I want the same thing over here. So all I have to do is hold down the control key. It'll temporarily turn it off, and then I can add edges to it like this, and then let go, and then I've added it to that edge too. So instead of having separate fillet over here and a separate fillet over here, it's one fillet that's doing the whole thing. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. Now I'm going to want these ends to be rounded. So, and I think that I want to round this edge. So let's see, maybe something about like that. So I'm going to hold down my control key, and I'm going to add those to it. And so there we go. And then I want to fillet this edge here. And so I'm going to go something like that. And then I'm holding down my control key, pick it over here. And now I have those kind of rounded. And so that looks like a nice shape. So go to the top, back a little bit. And that's getting me my kind of shape that I have in here. Now it looks like he's got some cuts in there. We can do that. And we've got these little pieces in here. So let's go back and do those. Let's do these first. Okay, let's do these first. All right, so to do that, we're going to use an array tool to array those. So the first thing I have to do is draw one. So what I'm going to do is let's turn my grid back on. And we can hide this one. So if we go to the right, we can kind of see this piece. And so what I'm going to do is a new drawing. So I'm going to sketch, and we're going to pick this direction. As a matter of fact, let's don't do it that way. Let's cancel that. I'm right clicking, and let's undo that. What we want to do is I want to draw it on this edge. So what I can do is say sketch, and then I can pick that, and then I'm sketching on parallel to that plane. Okay, so we can initially just do a box, and I want it kind of let's see, we want it to cut certain distance in. We'll do that later. So I'm going to say maybe right about here. And then what about there? Okay, then I can fillet this, and I'm going to fillet this at the same time, and I'm going to make that. So I'm kind of trying to follow this curve a little bit here. Don't have to be perfect. That looks pretty good. So I'm going to right click OK, and now I'm going to do an inset. I tell you what, before I do the inset, let's be easier if I just trim that off. Okay, now do our inset. And we want it, how far, it's according to how far we want it to cut into this shape. We'll say something like that. And now I need to close this off. So we'll go here and then there. Okay, that looks pretty good. So I'll finish that sketch. Okay, we're going to rename this. So we're going to call this our inset cutter, because we're going to use this as a cutting tool. Okay, so we can go here. And so now I can come in here and do a press pull on this. And we'll say maybe something like that. Alright, so now I can do an array with this. So what I can do is create, and you can go to pattern, and there's different kinds of arrays. I'm going to use a circular array. I've already got the tool up here, so I just click on that. And it wants you to pick it could be body or faces, and that's my body. And then it wants me to select the axis that I want to rotate around, and I'm going to pick this axis. And then I can tell how many I want, and I don't really know. I'm going to say set 30. And that looks pretty good. And so now what I can do is I've got a thing in here called suppress, which means I can go in here and turn any of these off that I don't want. Okay, so we just go in here and click these, say, well, I don't really want. Actually, I wonder if I want to maybe take that back. Let's turn on our other body. And I think that's, yeah, it's going to be off there. So we don't want to do that one. We'll do that one separately. So turn these off. So I'm able to do this because this has got the suppress on, which means that when I create an array, I can come in and say, okay, don't create specific ones. So looks like we want those 3 right there. So I can click OK, and then it's going to make those. Okay, so now what I can do is combine them. This is like a Boolean method. Okay, so I don't need this one right now. I'm going to go ahead and turn that one off. And then I can go Boolean. Okay, this is a combine, which is a Boolean function. Target body, this is the body I want to keep. And then the cutting bodies. So this, this, and this. Now, I can cut these. I can join these together. Okay. I can do an intersect, but it only leaves me the pieces in between. But what I want to do is use these as cutting. Now, I have a button here where I can keep the tools. Sometimes I like to keep the tools unless I'm going to maybe modify them. So I'm going to tell it to keep the tools. And then click OK. And then I have to turn these tools off. And you'll see that I was able to cut that groove in there. Now, there's things you have to kind of determine, and this can be done several ways. Now, I know that this is probably filleted down in here, so it's not really square. So I would come in and pick this, and I could do a fillet in there, maybe about like that. And I'm going to hold down the control key, and I'm going to want this on all of these. And on the bottom too. Okay, click OK on that. And then I probably want to fillet this outside edge. So I'm going to go here and fillet there. And maybe that's still too much, maybe about like that. Okay, control key. I want to put it on this one and that one. And I want to put one down here in the bottom, but I'm not sure if I want it to be the same. So let's just try that. I might want it to be a different fillet, but that looks pretty good. I think I'll go with that. Hold down the control key. Okay, and then I've got all those filleted in, and so they're nice and smooth. See how easy that is? Versus, I mean, if you tried to do that in 3ds Max or Maya, that's a pain. Okay. Now, another thing that you can do is you may have a specific angle that you want to look at it all the time. Let's say that this is my angle I want to view it at all the time. Right up here you have a thing called named views. Okay, if I open this up, it's top view, front view, right, that's what all these views are, but I can create my own, which is kind of like creating a camera. So if I want to be able to come back to this periodically, right here where this says named view, I can right click on this, new named view. Okay, and we'll just say this is our main cam. And what this means is in any given time, I'm moving around, I can come back in here and click that, and it's going to go back to that angle. Okay. All right, so flying right along. So we're getting this in there. Okay. Now you just have to decide certain things. I've got this going straight across here. Now, looks like his, and I don't know if he designed it this way. Okay, maybe he's wanting it to be at an angle there, to cut at an angle, and we can do that too. And let me show you how we could do that. Let me think about it here. Let's see, that's if we wanted to go back to, let's hide these for a minute. We're going back to these bodies. Okay, so let's turn our sketch back on. And what we're going to do is edit this sketch. So I'm going to go back to my base sketch. I'm going to right click and go edit sketch, and then I'm back at this sketch. Now, actually, I don't want to do that, because that turns my geo off. So what I'm going to do is just create a new sketch. So we're going to create a new sketch here. And then what I'm going to do is create a circle, maybe from right about here. Turn my snap off over here. And maybe right there. Okay, I'm going to finish that. And that's this one, and I'm going to name it, and it's my, so I'm going to call this my Inset Slicer. Alright, so what we can do here now is we're going to come in, and we're going to go what's called split body. So I can pick these bodies, and then we have a splitting tool, and it's going to project up and it's going to cut those. So I click OK, and then that projected it right through and cut those pieces. So now when I'm picking things on your keyboard, F5 allows you to pick a body, F7 lets you pick faces, and F8 is picking edges. So right now I want to hit F5, and I don't want this piece. Now if I hit delete, it's a problem, okay? And the reason is we got to turn off. I told it to leave our original pieces. Okay, so what you have to do is we want to pick these, and then you want to come over here, and what you want to hit is remove, not delete, because if you do delete, it deletes that whole construction history. So what you're doing is removing them. So we remove those. Remove that one. Okay, so now we've got those at an angle. So that's how we would do it if we wanted to cut those in at an angle. Now, we can go back here, and here's what's nice about this at any given point. I can go back to our timeline. So if I go to, let's see, F7, so I can pick that edge. That's this right here. Okay, so I can delete that bevel out of there. Okay, here's my array. Okay. I can also suppress it. Okay. Suppress it turns it off. I can unsuppress it. And then I'm going to delete that. And that's going to mess with other things on the timeline. So I don't want to delete that. I'm just, matter of fact, can I not? Maybe press that. Yeah, I can't do that. Okay, so if I want to have those angles, I'm really going to have to just roll my timeline back to before that array. So really, I'll have to delete these that I made. Just go back. Let's see, this is where we should be able to maybe keep that. We need to delete that fillet. We need to delete that combine. Okay, so we have the array, and then we have the sketch. There we go. Okay, so... Alright, so now we'll split these. So, split body, this one, and this one. And turn our sketch on. And select our splitting tools. And click OK. That'll cut those. I need to pick. Okay, I need to go to F5. And I turn that sketch off. Okay, so now I can. Let's pick these. And I have to remove those. Now, I want to show you another thing too. Is we can do fillets and stuff on these before we use them as cutters. So like I could come in here, whereas we did filleting after, you could do filleting before too. So I can come in here and let's pick F8 for edges. Let's go here. We're going to fillet that. So we fillet those. And then I'm going to want to fillet that. Go there, control this one, this one, this one, this one, that one. And so we can curve these cutting tools. Okay, so now combine. This is our target body, this, that, and click OK. And then let's turn those off. And that created me a piece down in like that. So then the only thing I need to do is to fill up this top edge. And that's too much. Maybe 0.2. Yeah, that's okay. So here and there. So that's two different ways you can. And you get different looks, okay? You'll see there's a little bit different look because before it was more square. This gives me this kind of a smooth kind of dip down in, whereas before it was a little more hard-edged in there. It's just according to how you want to do it. And so now we have those that are more at an angle. Okay, so let's go back to our main camera. And so now we have those at an angle. Okay. All right, I think I'm going to stop this video at this point and make this as number 1, and then we'll come back to add number 2. Okay, so stage 1 of creating our MP3 player. Hope this has helped you understand some directions of how to go. One other thing I would like to mention is you'll see this is kind of faceted looking. Okay, what you can do is you can right click and go display detail. By detail, it's doing a kind of a low poly, and I can tell it to do this kind of a medium poly, and now it'll be a little bit more smoother looking. That's just based on your computer, and as your computer can handle that. In the end, it's just a viewport thing. It's not really how smooth the model is, because the models, there's no polygons. And so when later we can export the model and convert it to polygons. But this is just, smoothing in your viewport. Okay, so you can do that. Okay, hopefully this helped you, and we'll come back in a little bit to part 2.